We quit.
I was making $120,000 fresh out of college working in tech sales, and my wife was a designer with one of the largest tech agencies in Singapore. Back then, in the eyes of our friends and family, it almost felt like we had made it just because we had a great education and a great job. But deep down, we both felt like our lives were slipping by. So after working several years and learning these 3 lessons along the way, we decided to quit and left Singapore.
You know, we were told to go to school, get good grades, get a good education, right? I did that. At one point, I'm sitting at my job. I'm like, man, they lied to me.
I don't think we're alone in this feeling. A great resignation 2.0 is simmering. Nearly a third of young Singaporeans reported severe feelings of depression, anxiety, or stress. And there are more and more people wanting to quit their jobs. It's never really an easy decision to quit, is it? You go back and forth until you actually do it. Well, for us, it was really these 3 realizations that helped us make up our minds about quitting our 9 to 5. Before we go any further, let me be clear. This video isn't intended to take a shot at corporate workers. If you love your job, good for you. But if there's ever one slight piece of discontentment with your job, then this video is for you. First, you will never really know who you are in a corporate job. For several years, who I needed to be was defined by my job and the expectations of my job. I commuted 1 hour to work in a jam-packed train and worked 8 hours a day, went back home and slept. And guess what I did the next day? I worked and I slept. And the next day, I worked, and pretty much the only thing I was looking forward to were the weekends, where I briefly didn't have to worry about the deadlines. It's also easy to let other people's opinion get the better of us. When we were younger, Darien and I were passionate about our baking business together. While some supported us, there were many other naysayers who were skeptics about making it on our own. And it's these types of comments that can slowly eat away at your dreams. Eventually, I was too afraid to fail because I cared too much about what other people thought of me. When you don't know who you are, like how I was, everybody's opinion seemed to have a lot more weight. So when a great opportunity was presented to me, guess what? I took it up. And I think that's how a lot of us end up in these standardized pathways. We live in a time where it is becoming normalized to accept things as it is and accept that's life. But that is far from the truth. And before I continue, I want you to check this out. There was a study done about the top 5 regrets people have at the end of their lives. And the single most common regret was to live a life that others expect of us instead of being true to ourselves. In your life, you will work 90,000 hours, and that is 1/3 of your total life expectancy. Unfortunately, most of us have decided to work in the wrong job. It's all fine if you actually like your job. But what if you actually wanted to leave? Or you just wanted to slow down? Well, it's a trap. You can't. Because if you're like most people, you need the money to survive. Which brings us to our second point, which is a job costs us more than our time.
One incident put everything into perspective for me. It was October 2023. I had a week-long work retreat where everyone flew in from across the world to the US. We had a great time that week, and when it was time to leave the redwood forest to head back home, I was together with my colleagues and it was pitch dark because we left the retreat site really early in the morning. And as a back row passenger, all I could remember was a bright, flashing light and then a big crash. And I was counting each time the car flipped. It must have been 5 times or so. And some of us had to be airlifted out to the hospital. I wish that this traumatic event was enough to wake me up, but alas, it wasn't. It was actually what happened a couple of months later that really shook me. I had a colleague who had been raving for a big adventure to Kilimanjaro, which she has been planning for a couple of months. She had the flight tickets, the hiking tour, the porters, all ready and booked for the trip. She was ready to go. And as luck would have it, the new C-suite boss was going to be visiting in the same exact period that her trip was planned. So guess what? She decided to cancel the trip. I was sitting at my desk, utterly baffled at this situation. Here's my colleague. She's 10 years more senior than me, gone through the exact same traumatic car accident as me, and cancelling her much anticipated milestone trip just for a new boss? How many times have we decided to cancel our dinner appointments with friends and family, or even put on pause our medical appointments or gym classes just because work demanded it? I could see my future self in her and the people around me, and I didn't want any of it. When there are 500 other people in the company doing the exact same thing as you, you're totally replaceable. Just another cog in the machine. Either you hit the targets that they ask of you, or you get out. Because they're gonna find another you to do the same job anyways, for maybe a much cheaper cost. But our youth, health, relationships, and ultimately happiness is all on us. They can't be replaced. And I don't know about you, but to me, all of that are things that money can't buy, no matter how much you have of it. So then, my third big realization was what really kicked us across the line. And it's about money. Specifically, it's about the power of leverage. Here's what it means.
To get rich, you're going to need leverage, and leverage comes in labor, comes in capital, or it can come through code or media.
This realization had a big impact on me. We all know what leverage is physically when we use a seesaw or a lever. But when it comes to money, the oldest form is labor, which is people working for you, or you working for other people. So instead of me lifting rocks, I can get 10 other people to lift rocks, and just by my guidance, they would be able to do it a lot faster than I can alone. And everybody understands this because we have evolved to understand the labor form of leverage. And so what happens is society overvalues labor, or a job, as a form of leverage. The problem is, as long as you're stuck in the labor form of leverage, you will forever be trading your time for money, whether we are the most junior executive or the managing director. And this is where it gets interesting when we look at the higher form of leverage, which is capital. And this is a little less hardwired into us because it talks about money markets, which is a relatively new form of invention to human beings in the last hundreds of years. But fundamentally, the idea behind capital leverage is to make money from money, and not your time anymore. So from your assets, like your money making interest in banks, your equity appreciating in the stock markets, or renting out your home for cash.
That was my turning point. I've always been a rule follower, believing I need to work hard till my 50s or 60s and then retire, just like most people. But I realized that if we quit and left Singapore, we could have just rented out the apartment. And we started living with housemates even when we were still back in Singapore. Even though I wasn't comfortable with it at first because I grew up in a small family. But sacrificing privacy for a little bit of extra income taught us something big. The money that we earned from capital was way more satisfying than any money we earned from the paycheck. We could also get rid of things like our watches, bags, shoes, things that we didn't really need. Our lifestyle costs were also reduced by living in a place with a cheaper cost of living, like Bali. But hey, if you're watching this, don't wait for some traumatic life experience or wait till you had enough of a stressful work culture. Quit because you want to live your dream life, because you only get one chance. The real power of money is not the freedom to buy whatever you want. It is the freedom not to let anyone control your life, your time, or your emotions. So now we're jobless. We're far from anything that we are used to, with no backup plan.
Hey, thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. We're now on our adventure of traveling to different places, islands, and cities for at least a month each with the hope of finding the perfect place to live. We just did 2 months in Bali and we'll be heading over to Lombok next. And of course, along the way, we'll be taking you along to showcase the cost of living, the lifestyle, and travel in the area. So if you have any questions for us or any ideas at all, just leave them down in the comments below and we'll be sure to get to them. I can't wait for the next one. I'll catch you there. Bye bye.